All right. Do you want to declutter and downsize now that your kids are grown? Hi, I'm Cora Naylor. Decluttering and downsizing can also bring up a lot of emotion attached to it. So today I've invited Connie Graff to join us with some ideas on how to go through this process. Connie takes her clients from chaos to peace with organizing, clutter clearing, and taming your file monster. When too many things in our lives are connected to our past, it's difficult to create a new tomorrow. Our life tends to continue in the same old rut and we feel stuck. A part of us is buried under all this stuff. By clearing their clutter and chaos, her clients go on a transformational and spiritual process. Through this process, they see and experience that being organized is being at peace and empowered. She helps her clients understand why they have chaos, how to clear it, and how to make sure it doesn't creep back again. So welcome, Connie.
Thank you, Cora, for having me.
Yeah, excited. I think a lot of people have been doing some decluttering and cleaning while this whole COVID thing's been going on.
Yeah, because all of a sudden we're all more at home. And then so you're seeing the clutter more when you're so busy and in your daily routine and you're going to work, then your brain has actually the ability to focus or not focus on clutter and kind of tune that out. And you're just focusing on what you're doing, and then you're not really seeing it. And all of a sudden when you're more at home, you're noticing it more, also because you sit more at home, like in your physical body. You're more at home, you feel the energies more from all this stuff.
Yeah, and it does, yeah, the energy around how much stuff you have can definitely make a difference. Yeah, how, maybe tell us a little bit more about that with the energy of clutter.
Well, yeah, so it's not just clutter. So everything around us has energy, and what you decide to surround yourself with has energy, and then it has a relation to yourself, because you're most of us surround ourselves with things that we love. So there is a connection and everything. And so if you all of a sudden have a lot of things that are that you don't love anymore, you maybe used to and you don't anymore, or that are broken, or that are literally from the past, and you have kind of moved on and you're having a different life, then that energy can actually, it's not that it has a necessarily a negative effect, like you don't have to be scared of it, but it does have an effect on you. We just have to be aware of that. And you can feel that by, if you're going into a house or into a hotel or into a room that is nice and clutter free, that's completely different energy in there than if you go into a, let's see, an antique store where there's lots of stuff, and you just know the energy is different. So it's the same in your home. It's everything has an effect on you, and it is energy. And if you're becoming more aware of it, because you're sitting all of a sudden more at home because it's COVID, you're starting to notice more how it actually really feels in your body and within you. And and then you may start decluttering automatically without even
Yeah,
having it planned. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I know for empty nesters, it can often bring up a lot of emotion when they're clearing out, after the kids move out and maybe they're clearing their own stuff, but also their kids' rooms.
Yeah.
There's always a dilemma of what to do. Do you, clear the room out and make it your own space? Do you hang on to it while thinking they might come back?
Mm.
Do you have any tips around that for women that are going through the emptiness?
Yeah. So the only thing that doesn't change in life is that life changes, no? And so we're moving on. And when children leave the home, that is, of course, a huge um, event in your life, no? So there's a lot of grief involved, not just like and joy, of course, because you're proud your kids move on, but there's a lot of grief, and you just have to acknowledge this grief. It's a huge transition phase too, from being the caretaker or the mother, and looking after them, to becoming now more possibly the mentor or the friend. And so whether or not you want to clean the room out right away or not is very individual. Ideally, of course, you want your child to move on and become successful, whatever that means for the child and for you in life. And I'm thinking too, the child wants too that you are happy and that you're moving on with your life. So ideally, of course, you're trying to move on, but how fast, that is up to you.
Yeah.
Because you can't stay stuck. Like, children are growing up and moving out. That's a fact of
Yeah.
life. That's where the let go comes from. And it doesn't only have to be sad. You, if you can focus more on what the advantage is now, what the joy is now, and then also what is the freedom to actually maybe do now more for yourself, then you may get to the point where you say, okay, I clean that room out and make it my own. But it's for sure a process. And what I would just suggest is do it mindful and not from a place of should, like I should,
Yeah.
whichever direction, I should clean it out or I
Yeah.
should keep it. Do it from a perspective of, what do I want in life? What would I want to see in here, with the knowing that that part of my life is over. Like, even if they come back, which might happen, but then it's not that much mother and child anymore.
Mhm.
It's a different relationship, you know?
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. And well, how do you help? Like, I know a lot of people are overwhelmed. They almost don't even know where to start. So, how do you get started if you're stuck and you're not even sure how to start the process?
Yeah. So I would always say, like, don't start at the hard part. And the hard part is going to be your child's room. So don't start there. Start somewhere where not necessarily have anything to do with your child or the fact that your child moved out. So one of the things that I talk about a lot, also, like, I wrote a little ebook about it too, is the love tour. So you're actually trying to, or not trying, you're actually walking through your home consciously, very aware, and you're looking, what are the places that you really love in your home, and you're really consciously noticing it, say thank you, I love this corner, or I love this bookshelf, or whatever. And then you make a second tour and you notice, what are the little clutter things or the little messy parts that you don't like, and you start there. Start somewhere that is also not so emotional. In empty nester case, maybe not has necessarily anything to do with your child moving out, but just with you. And also another thing is always, like, be mindful to just come from you first. Declutter things that are really belonging to you and not necessarily to the whole family. Or
Mhm.
organize these things and just go from there and build up your, I always call it the decluttering muscle. It's like you wouldn't go to the gym and all of a sudden expect you could run on the treadmill for half an hour without being
Yeah.
exhausted. So you have to do it with the decluttering to start somewhere not so personal and in a small enough area that you don't overdo it, and then more go back and be really conscious and mindful. Does it feel better now, or what would be missing, what would make it better, and just go from there, and then kind of build yourself up and out. And then when you get more used to actually really consciously creating that space for you, and it's all about you, because now as a empty nester, it's more about you and most likely about your partner, but first of all about you. When you go further out, then you get to the point where you actually can start cleaning out the room, possibly, if that's the goal. Or maybe you want to make it a multi-purpose room where there is still a bed in it for when the daughter or the son does come home, but you also are using it for something for yourself, like if you do sewing or if you do reading, maybe you have a reading nook in there, or if you're doing any other things. Yeah,
Yeah.
so never start with the hard part.
Yeah.
It's counterproductive because you're overwhelming yourself even more. So start somewhere not emotional, and small areas, and then build your muscle up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because, and I think that's one of the things when you're decluttering or even just organizing. I know recently I cleaned out my fridge and my pantry, reorganized that while I was watching a webinar. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's just hard getting started, but once you do, you get into that groove and it always feels so great. It's like going to the gym, right? When you're not
Yes.
always excited to go there, but when you're done, you
Yeah.
feel good and it feels lighter.
Yeah. And if you have a hard time motivating yourself or getting started, what sometimes helps is that you give yourself permission to only do it for 10 minutes or whatever is an amount of time that you feel like, okay, I could do it. So set yourself a timer, say, okay, I do it for 10 minutes or 15, and then I reward myself, for example, with sitting down and reading a magazine or whatever your jam is, and then and that's how you get started. So by giving you permission to only do it a short period of time, and then while you're doing it and you're feeling like, oh no, actually I really am getting into a flow, I enjoy it, then you give yourself permission, okay, I do it double the time, and then you set the timer again. But always make sure that your job is small enough that you could stop at any time, because we're a lot of people run into trouble is when they're taking on too much and then they're in the middle of this huge project and get burned out and can't do it anymore, and then walk away from it, and it possibly looks worse than it looked before, and then I think, oh, this cluttering thing doesn't work and it makes me feel bad. But decluttering, like you just said, actually makes you feel lighter and good if you do it the right way. So always make sure you give yourself permission to only do short periods of time or little areas, so
Yeah.
that you feel good, because that's, I call decluttering self-love. Decluttering is self-love. You look after yourself. A nicer environment makes you feel so much better, but to get there you have to feel good too. It's not just the result, it's the getting there too. Yeah.
Yes. No, I love that. And I love setting a timer for no matter
Yeah.
what kind of tasks you're going to do, whether it's decluttering or anything that you have to do. It makes it a little bit more fun. It's like, how much can I get done while this
Yeah.
timer is going? And
Yeah.
it brightens things up when you set it and gives yourself a little
Yeah.
bit of a challenge, because it is amazing how much you can get done in 10 minutes. People think, oh, I got to have the whole weekend to declutter. But if you just do 10-minute chunks every
Yeah.
day, you can accomplish so much
Yeah.
just by
And
doing that little bit.
who would want to do a whole weekend of
Yeah,
decluttering? Like seriously, like nobody wants to do that. And you burn out too. You're, especially if you don't do any decluttering beforehand. Like if your decluttering muscle is already trained and in shape, then maybe you can say, okay, this Saturday I'm gonna spend 3 hours and actually do this thing, because, and then because your decluttering muscle is trained, it's like we're running a marathon. You trained for it, so you can do it. But that's exactly what happens with most people. They think, oh, once I have a whole weekend to do that, I will do that. Well, A, that weekend will never come, because who
yeah,
would want to have a weekend full of
mm,
decluttering? And B, even if it would come, you probably wouldn't even get through half of Saturday, because
yeah,
it doesn't work that way. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. Yeah, that's amazing tips. And I think that's really important for people to know. Working in little chunks still achieves the same thing and it's more doable.
Yeah.
So that part I think is really important. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, is there some way for people to get in touch with you? And you said you had an ebook. Maybe is there any things that they can get from your website?
Yeah, so my website is connygraf.com, which is CONNYGRAF.com. And on there, yeah, if you do slash ebook, then you get to my ebook that I wrote together with Vicky McLeod. And it came out of a challenge that we're actually running for the last 3 years, always in February, because February is the month of love, and we are saying decluttering is self love. And so we created that book out of it. I also have a podcast that you can listen in, and I have a lot of episodes that are just short enough that you can say, okay, I go and declutter, and I always joke and say you can go and declutter your sock drawer or
Yeah,
something small while you're listening. So that's where people can find me, and I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. You can
perfect.
find me there too. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea because a lot of people do listen to podcasts, and actually, that's most of them are not that long, so they're actually a good idea. So you can double duty
Yeah.
doing something while you're listening to it. I like that idea to keep you company.
Yeah, I do that too. I don't like folding laundry. So the
Yeah.
only way I'm doing it is by listening to a podcast. And then it's
Oh,
actually
that.
fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So thanks so much for those tips today. And so if anyone wants to
You're
get a
welcome.
hold of Connie, like she said, she gave her email and her website, and it's running along the bottom of the video here too. If you want to get in touch with her, feel free to reach out, get her
Sure.
ebook, get started on your decluttering,
Yeah.
and open some space in your place. And if
Yeah.
you're an empty nester and you're not part of my empty nest Facebook group yet, just comment below with a yes, and we'll get you added into my group. And that way you'll know their videos that we've got coming up. So thanks so much again for joining me today, Connie, and we'll see everybody again soon.
Thank you so much, Cora, for having me. And bye, everyone.